The spoon theory is so real. And here's how chronic illness almost destroyed my sex life. As a therapist, particularly a relationship therapist, one of the things that I talk with couples with, and I also talk with individuals with, is just about their sex life. One of the things that has been a rude awakening for myself is for me to see how chronic illness has affected my sex life, not just as like a clinician helping others, but on the other side, being a patient and just living real life. For those of you who do not know what the spoon theory is, the spoon theory is essentially, I don't know exactly how it started, but a colleague of mine shared it with me, and I'm very grateful for that. But essentially, it's a story, and feel free to Google it. But essentially, it's a story of two friends sitting down at a diner. One of the friends has a chronic illness, and the other friend does not have a chronic illness. And so the friend without the chronic illness, in so many words, says something to the effect of, "Oh my goodness, it's so great to be sitting down with you. Like, I love spending this time with you. Glad we're here. We don't get to do this very often." And so the friend with the chronic illness, in so many words, says, "Yes, you're right. We don't get to do this very often." So I actually would love that we could do it more, but I literally can't. You don't know what it's like to be me. And so the friend without the chronic illness says, "Well, what do you mean?" And the two of them are sitting at a diner, and so the friend with the chronic illness says, "Well, it's kind of like this," and grabs some extra spoons off from another table and says, "It's kind of like this," and lays them out. It's kind of like I have, a limited amount of energy today. It's almost like I have 8 spoons a day. And so once I'm out of spoons, I can't get anything else accomplished. And so the friend without the chronic illness is like, "Oh, that's interesting." And so the friend with the chronic illness says, "Okay, like for example, walk me through your day." So the friend without the illness says something to the effect of like, "Okay, I get up, I go to the gym, and I go to work." And then so the friend with the chronic illness is like, "Hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, wait a second, wait a second." So first of all, your alarm goes off. Then you have to make a decision to open your eyes. That's going to cost you a spin. Then you have to kind of sit in with your body to figure out like how much pain are you actually in that day. That's going to cost you a spin. Then you have to decide if you're going to take a shower or not this morning, because it all depends upon how your body is feeling that day. That's going to cost you a spin. And then it's like, well, what about breakfast in the morning? You have to take your medications, and you have to figure out whether or not you're too sick to take the medication or too sick to eat something. That's going to cost you food. So literally before the person has even walked out the door, they've used almost all their spoons for the entire day. All their energy from the entire day is almost gone. And so the friend who doesn't have the chronic illness is like, "Oh my goodness, like I did not realize that. Like, if you're here with me, like you must have used so much energy. Like I feel bad." And so the friend without the chronic illness says something to the effect of, "Don't feel bad. Like I planned for this. This is how I planned to use my spoons today." And the friend with the chronic illness says, "And I try to keep one spoon in reserve. So just in case, like you need to call me, need a friendly ear, that I would be available for you." And some days I overdo it, and some days I take I lose a spoon from the day before. So you might not start off with 8 spoons, you might start off with 7 spoons. And so the friend without the chronic illness, by the end of the story of the spoon theory, is able to be like, "Oh my goodness, okay, now I get it. I get what your life is like," and is able to have a little bit more empathy and care for the friend with the chronic illness. So why am I bringing up this story that you can easily look it up online? I'm bringing this up because I talk about it all the time with my clients. I've watched it and observed it in my own life at different points in times. But as I start to take a look at my own sex life, starting to look at how chronic illness affects me just in terms of fatigue, some days I don't go to bed by 8. Some days I'm in bed by 5. And I'm sleeping the whole night, and I'm sleeping until that next morning just because my body needs the extra rest. That is a dramatic shift and change in terms of sex life. And if you've been married or you've been in a committed relationship for any period of time, particularly if you've gone past that 2 or 3 year mark, you understand that sex starts looking very different in your relationship. And so one of the things that I like to go to whenever I'm talking to clients, and even just as I had to sit with myself and sit with my husband, is that, when you take a look at the research in terms of, these couples, there's a research study done a long time ago, but essentially had couples who were together for over 25 years and were still reporting being happily together. And so they took a look at their sex life, and there was a couple of things that were important to still be sexually active and still be sexually satisfied 25 years later. And so one of the things that they noticed for those folks is they noticed that those people, number one, they prioritized sex. Like sex was something that they both valued in terms of their relationship. That form of connection, it's hard to replace it with anything else. So that was number one, they valued it. The second thing that folks did who were together 25 years later, still reporting being happy together and having a sex life that they felt was satisfying, is they reported scheduling it. Now I know. For some people, as you're listening, you're probably like, yes, thank you for saying that. We just need to just put it on the calendar and we know what it is, and we can plan for it and we can work for it. And then I can have time to get my nervous system prepared to be intimate with my partner. There are another group of folks who are like, Virginia, that doesn't sound fun. That in and of itself is not sexy. So if you know anything about sexuality, one of the things that happens in relationship is there usually is one partner who has a higher desire. That partner is also usually able to engage in spontaneous arousal. And so spontaneous arousal just has to do with being able to be really quickly in the mood. So, partner A says, hey, can we spend some time together and have some intimate time together? Partner B is like, yep, let's do it, let's go. They they're the example of like what I like to say is almost kind of like getting in a car and you go out to the car, turn that thing on, and you can go ahead and go for a run. There are other folks who in the relationship are engaged in more responsive desire. And so responsive desire has to do with being able to put themselves in positions and walking along with their partner so that they're able to get to a place where their nervous system is ready to make love. So I like to call spontaneous desire more like turning on your car on a cold day. A lot of times when it's really, really cold, we don't just pop that thing on and go for a ride. Like we turn on the car, we let the car warm up, we start seeing if there's ice around it. We make sure where I live in the neighborhood, I will tap the hood of the car, make sure there's like no cat in there trying to warm up over the night. But there's a slower process that's a little bit more gentle in terms of being able to get that car ready to be up and running so that you can be able to make love with your partner and still be able to go for a ride, have an enjoyable ride. But the process in terms of warming up is different. So in my relationship, I already was the partner with more responsive desire. I noticed that my start engine time, so to speak, was significantly delayed as I started finding out, like, okay, you have an autoimmune disorder, you have chronic illness. The fatigue was something that was definitely catching me. Occasionally having different pains that I wasn't used to having. That also was something that was getting me. And then just like not feeling very sexy, period. So just in a place where my libido just wasn't as high as it normally is. And so the normal things that we would do and the normal schedule that we do is like, okay, well, I know Thursday's a longer day for me, so that's probably not a good day. This will be a better day because we need to get home. Like I would have some time, I could take a bath. Maybe I don't have as many like after school responsibilities in terms of kids, so I can have some time, listen to some music, kind of get me in the mood. Maybe I'm not going to cook dinner that day, or maybe I am going to cook dinner, but I'm not going to some sort of extensive dinner that has to be exhausting. But we start kind of creating that atmosphere very early in the day. With chronic illness, what I've learned is with that whole responsive desire pattern of how I would normally kind of get myself ready, by the evening or in the morning for lovemaking with my husband, I noticed for myself that I had to really plan that also around my chronic illness symptoms. And I've also had to plan that around with what my recovery looks like. As I'm shooting this video, I'm still pretty early in my recovery, and I just saw a provider yesterday, and the provider shared with me that it's going to take about a year for my body to be able to be in remission. So I'm very early in this process, and my hope is to be able to report later on that maybe the injury gets started a little bit faster. But as I'm taking a look at it, it's almost kind of like not only is it a whole day trying to start an engine, but it's a cold day and there's a vehicle parked behind my car and the tire's flat and we can't find the keys. Like that's kind of more where I'm at in terms of these early stages of trying to manage chronic illness and find ways of being able to get my body what it needs and starting to be able to understand the signals. So we're planning that. We're also finding other ways to be able to be intimate. So when we talk about lovemaking, a lot of times people think that, okay, you have to get all the way to this place where both partners have some sort of an orgasm. So one of the things that my husband and I have made, and this is something that I've talked to so many other couples about, is starting to find pleasure, starting to find what is pleasurable for you, what is pleasurable for your partner. Can you both find ways of just being really flexible with each other? This may not be, a routine that you're normally in that works for you. But it's like, okay, how can we just be in the moment with each other? How can we just enjoy each other? How can we find ways of just having pleasure and just engaging with each other? So you're not chasing an orgasm. It's not about the pressure. It's not about performing. It literally is just about spending time together, skin to skin, and just being able to rest and to be able to recuperate and just nurture yourself with each other's nervous systems. As a parent, I'm so often giving and pouring into my kids, and that's important. And I love it. I will never change that for anything. As a wife, one of the things that I also love and enjoy is being able to be in a spot where I feel like my husband and I were able to kind of like minister to each other's wounds, minister to each other's needs. And that is such a very invaluable gift during the season of being able to just find recovery. And so wherever you are with that pattern, my hope is for you and your partner to have some patience with each other, but to also keep sex a priority. Keep it a priority. You're starting to see like, okay, how do we navigate some of the challenges of this together? Whether it's a doctor's appointment, new symptoms, lab work, which is not sexy at all, hospital visits. Regardless of what's going on, it's like, how can we be flexible? How can we move with each other? How can we find each other and experience pleasure and just rest with each other's nervous systems? That not only is going to add into your relationship, but it actually helps the body heal. So my name is Virginia. I'm a licensed mental health therapist. Thank you for this time with me. I hope this was helpful. See you later.